الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Firstly, I apologize for the delay in starting because of these technical issues. Inshallah khair. Okay, so without wasting too much time, let's continue our discussion which we started off last week. Okay, so last week we started by discussing. So last week we discussed many things, and I hope you have all of you have slides, which you can see. I'm not able to see the slides, but I'm sure you are able to see. So if you remember, there was a part from our last presentation that was remaining. Okay, so if I can request Sheikh Hasnain to open that presentation. So this is session 1 of Justice of God, and slide number 20. So session 1, slide 20. Okay, so I'm just going to explain the discussion that we have today, and hope that the slide also is there on the screen, or maybe you can download the files and you can go to the slide yourself, because I'm not able to do that from my system, from my computer here. Okay, so we reached this stage where now, okay, so we defined what was the meaning. Okay, and I can see the slides loading. Okay, does everyone have my voice? I'm calling from phone. Can everyone hear me? Just want to quickly check, because I can see that I'm connected through a phone, and I can see that my voice is on air. So it should be fine. Okay, so we discussed what is the meaning of the justice of God. Okay, so inshallah we are going to come back to it. So right now what I want to do is that, okay, so we understood that the meaning of justice of God is that He's going to act with us in a just manner. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that He's going to give us our creational needs, what we require for our survival here, everything that we need. Okay, and also in addition to that, if we perform good deeds, He's going to reward us for that. Okay, so this was the meaning of Allah's justice. In short, if Allah is going to give us what we deserve, okay, so this is very important, or what is our right, then He'll be called a just God. So now the question comes that how do we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just? Okay, so right now what we are going to do is we are going to go through two intellectual proofs to show that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just. Okay, so when you want to prove something for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, okay, so you want to prove an attribute or a quality for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then one of the ways is, for example, is to refer to the Holy Quran, right? So you open the Holy Quran and you see how Quran describes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so that is one way which I'm not going to cover in this session. Why? Because you can refer to the Quran yourself, and it would be a good excuse to go through the Quran and see which verses of the Quran talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's justice. Okay, so there are many verses in the Quran which very much emphasize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is adil. He's not going to do zulm or oppression on anyone. Okay, so there's a verse in the Quran which says, Inna Allaha la yazlimu mithqala dharratin. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not do injustice to anyone to the extent of an atom's weight. Okay, so So you can imagine, atom's weight means something very insignificant. Even that amount of injustice, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to do to his servants. Okay. Now, I want to present two proofs through use of our intellect. So let's go through the first proof. So now we are trying to understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through our intellect. So these two are intellectual proofs. So the first proof is based on fitra and intellect. How? I'm just going to show you now. So let's move on to the next slide, slide number 21. Okay, so we can all go to slide number 21. Okay, so slide number 21. Let us do one experiment and okay. So there's a sorry, I just stopped talking because there's a someone just mentioned that maybe my sound is being echoed. So let me just do some adjustments and okay. So okay, so everyone is on slide number 21. Okay, so let us do one experiment, and this is a very simple experiment that, I mean, you can imagine. So imagine a small school girl who's going to her school, and a person comes on his motorbike, and he snatches away this bag of this little girl from her. Okay, so let us suppose that you are watching this incident from, okay, so you're standing by the side of the road and you see this happening. How do you feel? Okay, so again, I'm talking about the feeling you get when you see such an incident, that a person snatching away school bag or the bag which this young girl was carrying. How do you feel? You feel bad. You feel that, oh no, what happened was wrong. Okay, this was not right, that a person comes and he steals away this bag which belonged to this girl. It was her right to own this bag and benefit from it, but this person came and he just snatched away, this thief, and he took away the bag. You see the girl is crying. You feel bad. Okay. Question: why do you feel bad? What happened just now? Okay, someone just stole something from someone, so why do you care? How does it relate to you? Okay, so the answer is no, it relates to you. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has inspired every single human being with this sense of virtue and vice. What is good and what is bad? Okay, so there's this verse in the Quran, فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. Okay, so this is very famous verse of the Quran, right? So, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspired the soul with the knowledge, with the understanding of what is virtue and what is vice, what is good and what is bad. Okay, so what just happened was that this inner hidden sense, this fitra you have, it just got activated. Why? Because you saw oppression happening. Okay, and you really felt bad about it. Why? Because your soul tells you that this was not right. Oppressing someone, snatching away what they rightfully own, denying them their rights is not good. And this feeling is especially strong, you know when? When this feeling is strong, when this oppression happens to you. Okay, so this is very important, right? So yeah, sometimes it may happen that if oppression is happening to another person, for example, the feeling might not be so strong. But if someone oppresses you, someone steals something which rightfully belonged to you, okay, someone denies you your right, you really feel bad about it. Why? Because we are made in such a manner. Okay, so this is our fitra, our creation, that we can recognize what is good and what is bad. Okay, so what I'm trying to say something very simple. What I'm trying to say is that our fitra, okay, the innate nature we have, feels that injustice is an imperfection. Injustice or oppression is bad. Okay. So now how do I use this to prove Allah's justice? Very simple. So let's go to the next slide, slide number 22. So the proof is very simple. To prove that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just. Why? Because justice is a good thing and it is a perfection. Okay, how do I know this? Through my fitra. I know that when I see justice, I like it. I feel happy. Okay, so, and this is a feeling which we all have, that if you treat people in a just manner, you get a good feeling. Okay, or you see someone treating people in a just manner, you like it. And if you see someone oppressing others, you dislike it. This shows that justice is a good thing and it is a perfection. Justice is a perfection, injustice is imperfection. Okay. And we know that God has all the perfections in infinite amount. Okay, why? Because God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that most perfect being. Okay, He has no imperfection in Him. He is a needless being. He is independent. He is not a being which will commit injustice to anyone. Why? Because He is infinitely perfect. And justice is one of the perfections. Okay, so this is a very simple proof which shows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to be just. Not only He has to be just, He has to be infinitely just. Why? Because even if you limit His justice and you say that no, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a little bit just and a bit oppression He can do. If you say that, you have made Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala limited and imperfect. Okay. So again, this thing that why God is all perfect and He's infinite, I don't have the time to go through the proof of that now, but there is another course sometimes I conduct on knowing God. So there's a course before this course which takes around 5-6 sessions to go through understanding of God, and there we prove that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all perfect. So He has all the perfections. Okay. So this was one simple proof that I wanted to present. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Okay, so I know there'll be questions in your mind, and so that's the reason why I'm going to even present my second proof. Okay, so before we proceed, there's one small point I just want to mention, okay, very quickly. So this is slide number 23. Okay, so slide number 23. Okay, so this is a very important thing that I should mention here, and it is especially relevant because of the many things that are going on, especially in the Western communities, the kind of questions being raised about Islam and different things, people coming with completely new things or denying some things which are integral part of Islam. So here I want to point out to this very important issue that our fitra and our intellect can only generally know what justice and injustice is. Okay? See, fitra is a feeling. Okay? So when you see injustice, you feel bad. When you see justice, you feel good. But defining exact limits of justice is a very difficult task, especially if the situation becomes very complicated. Okay? So let me give you one small example. Okay, so generally my fitra and my intellect tells me that lying is bad. Lying is evil, right? Okay? And speaking the truth is good. This is what my fitra and my intellect tells me. Okay, but now the question is, when the situation becomes very difficult, okay, the situation becomes extremely difficult, and there are so many factors that come into picture, my fitra and my intellect now, they cannot judge this event. Like, for example, I ask you that I know lying is bad, but I'm stuck in a situation where if I don't lie, one person will steal money from my mu'min brother. Okay, a thief has come to you and you have something which is not yours. For example, imagine you have a gold ring or some gold jewelry which belongs to your friend. Okay, and a thief comes to you and tells you that, tell me what you have. Okay? If you say the truth that I have this thing which belongs to my friend, he's going to take it away. And if you lie and if you tell him that no, I don't have anything, you hide that thing, then you're going to save property of a believer. So the question now, what do? Is it just to lie here and save this property of the believer, or it's unjust to lie and you should just not lie and let the thief take away this money or this jewelry which belongs to your believing friend? So see the situation, I am just giving one example. You can even give other examples where situation is even more complicated. In such situations, neither our fitra nor our intellect can conclusively tell us which one is justice here. Okay? Is lying now justice because it's saving property of a believer, or no? Still, you don't have to lie in this situation. No, you say the truth and let the property of the believer be taken by the thief. So in these cases, the answer can be difficult. So what is our solution? In such situations, our only way out is to rely on authentic scriptures. What the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt have told us to do in this situation. And in our times, we have to refer to our marajah, okay, whose taqleed we do. So all of you are aware of this concept of taqleed, that we are supposed to follow a leading authority in religion. So when we have such difficult questions, where it's really difficult to decide what is justice and what is injustice, we refer to the rightful, the pious and the just scholars, the marajah, and we ask them. So for example, let me give you an example. Okay. So this is the fatwa of all the marajah, that if lying causes life of a believer to go away. So an oppressor comes to you and is asking for you about whereabouts of your believing friend. Why? Because he wants to kill your believing brother. Okay, all the fuqaha says that here it's not permitted for you to speak the truth. And here, in fact, in some situation, it becomes wajib for you to lie. And here, this lying is going to become an example of justice. Why? Because in this situation, because life of a believer is going to be saved, and that is more important in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, lying is bad. It is going to have its bad effect when you lie. It has bad effect on the soul, it has bad effect on other things, on the society, okay? But in this specific situation, you have no choice. Why? Because if you are going to say the truth, it's going to lead to killing of a believer. So this is one fatwa which all the marajah have. So in such situations, we should always refer to the ulama. Okay, so summarizing what I said is that yes, fitra and intellect can really help you. Okay, for example, I just showed to you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just through your fitra and through your intellect. But we shouldn't think that our fitra and our intellect, that my inner feeling and my inner sixth sense, as they call it sometimes, and my intellect can tell me everything. I don't need Quran, I don't need hadith, I don't need the ulama, I don't need to refer to the marajah. No. A part of knowledge we get from fitra and intellect, but there's a greater part. There's so many more things that our fitra and intellect may not be able to understand. So in such situations, we refer to the divine scriptures, the Quran and the Hadith, and that also through a correct understanding of these things through the qualified ulama. Okay, so let me not take too much time, okay, and so let me just go through my second proof. Okay, so I hope everyone can hear me because I'm calling through a phone, so I'm hoping that everyone is able to hear my voice, okay, and everyone is able to follow the slides. Okay, so let's go to slide number 24. Okay, so this is my second proof to show that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just. Okay, again, it's an intellectual proof. I'm not bringing verses from the Quran, I'm not bringing riwayat, I'm just going to present an intellectual proof. Okay, so the previous proof was good. Okay, I showed that justice is perfection, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is perfect. So he has to have this perfection, this good quality called justice. Okay, now let's do it in another way. And this is going to make our understanding of Allah's justice a bit more clear. Okay, so let's go through this proof. Okay, so the question I ask, okay, so let's move on to slide number 25. Okay, so slide number 25. Let me ask you this question. Okay, let me ask you this question. Why do people commit injustice? What happens to them? Let's analyze this a bit. Okay, so this happens to us also, right? Sometimes we end up committing injustice to others, maybe even to our own soul. Okay, so we have this concept that you can oppress, you can commit injustice against your own soul. We read in Dua Kumail, we say, Zalamtu nafsi, oh my Lord, I have oppressed myself. Okay, so oppression is a very general concept. Question, why do we commit, or why do people, okay, so outside, in the outside world, also in the human society, we see injustice, oppression. The examples are many. The war war which is going on in Yemen, the oppression in Palestine. Okay, so the examples are there, and not only physical oppression. There are different types of oppression. There's economic oppression. There's poverty. There are so many things going on. Question: why do people commit injustice? Okay, so let me go through the reasons because of which people commit injustice. They act in an unjust manner. They oppress others. Why? What happens to them? There are reasons. Something is going on with this person that leads him to commit oppression. Okay. So let me go through the reasons. Okay. The first reason, which is there on slide number 25, is ignorance. Okay. Ignorance about what is justice and what is oppression. I did not know that doing this was an oppression. I did not know. Okay, and this happens to us sometimes, right? So sometimes I'm ignorant of what is justice and what is oppression. I don't know. I did not know that saying this thing would be insulting to a believer, and this would be an oppression on him, because it's the right of a believer to be respected, right? It's a right of every believer to be respected. In fact, it's a right of every human being that you respect him. Okay? So, if you deny him that right, then you are committing injustice. Of course, you can't commit this level of injustice to the level of injustice which these big oppressors are doing, killing hundreds and thousands of people. No. So but it's a small injustice in itself. Why did I commit that? I didn't know. Ignorance. Okay, so sometimes ignorance is the cause that we see people committing oppression. So this is the first cause. Okay, let's move on. Slide number 26. One of the reasons, and this is very common, and that is that people have fear. Okay, so fear leads them to commit oppression. They fear that if I don't lie, how will I make money? Okay, how will I make business? Business means I have to lie. Why? Because there's this hidden fear back of the mind of this person. He's thinking that, oh my God, if I'm not going to lie to my customer, if I'm not going to lie to the person I'm having a business contract, I'm not going to twist the things around and say him what is real and not real and all these things, then what's going to happen is that I'm going to end up, okay, this person is going to end up lying. Why? Because he's fearing something. He's fearing that if he does not lie, he's going to lose on money, for example. Or some people lie because they fear that if they don't lie, their respect will be lost. Okay, so situations come about, right? So it's not something very uncommon. So people are faced with such situations where fear leads them to commit oppression. Okay, so this is the second reason. Okay, let's move on to the third reason, slide number 27. Okay, the third reason why people commit injustice is because of their desires or to fulfill their needs. Okay, so on one side we have needs that we need to fulfill. For example, the need for food, shelter, clothing, these are our needs. So what happens is that sometimes some people, in order to fulfill their needs, they commit oppression. Why? Because it's easier that way, they feel. Okay, so for example, a thief feels that, okay, and sometimes a thief, he is in financial need, But he says that, oh, who's going to work hard to earn money, hard earn money? No, it's very difficult. Let me go and steal something from someone to fulfill my need. Okay, so sometimes people do this, okay, so to fulfill their need. And sometimes it goes to a higher stage where it's desires. So this person, he has fulfilled his need. Okay, he doesn't need more money than what he has, but his desires, he has the desire for more. He wants more pleasure. He wants to fulfill his desires in different ways. He wants to gain different pleasures that are available around, and this urge, these desires, these lead him to commit injustice. So desires, and this is a very powerful thing, and we shouldn't underestimate its effect. The power of desires, that how powerful they are and how they can take you away from Sirat al-Mustaqim. It can take away a person from the path of justice and urge him to commit injustice. So sometimes people commit injustice because of desires. Let me give you one example. The colonial times. What happened? Okay, so the colonial era is not a very far thing from us, right? It's the recent history of this same modern world in which we live. It's not very far from us. 70, 80 years ago, the colonial system, it collapsed and it ended. But the history is not very old. So started around 300, 400 years ago. They had their golden period around 200 years ago. What led them to go to different countries, enslave them, colonize them, take away their resources? Okay, the different things that happened, the slave trade and the stealing of the wealth of the nations. One of the important things that led them to commit this injustice were their desires. Okay, they wanted more money, they wanted more things, they wanted to set up their big companies. Okay, I'm not saying it's wrong to aspire for big things, even in the material world. You want to set up your economy and everything, but not through injustice. There are just ways of doing it. Even Islam says that the Muslims should be financially strong, but it tells them that not through illegal means, not through riba, for example, or not by oppressing others or taking away their wealth. So desire. Okay. And the last reason we have, because of which people commit injustice, is these bad qualities like hatred and bad akhlaq that sometimes leads a person to commit injustice. Okay, so this happens to human beings, right? A lot. It happens a lot. Sometimes one person, he develops a deep hatred for another person. Okay, and this hatred leads him to commit injustice. Or there are other bad qualities that can come in a person which lead him to commit injustice. Okay, so these are the 4 reasons because of which people commit injustice. Now let me ask you this question. Okay, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is unjust, let me ask you this question. Why would he be unjust? Let's go to the next slide. Slide number 29. Okay, so the question I'm asking is that, can we apply these reasons to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Okay, so let's go through them one by one. Can you say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, na'udhu billah, was ignorant about reality? He did not know what was oppression and what was justice, so he ended up committing injustice. And then when he did that, he was sorry. Oh, what did I just do? I'm sorry, I did not know. Subhanallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above these things. He is Al-Alim. He has infinite knowledge. He knows everything. Okay, I mean, there's no question of thinking of Allah in this manner that you think that no, there are some things he did not know or he was not aware of the reality. No. I mean, the verses of the Quran tell us, وَمَا تَسْقُطُ مِنْ وَرَقَةٍ إِلَّا يَعْلَمُهَا. So even not a leaf falls from a tree except that Allah knows it. I mean, so a leaf falling from a tree, which appears something very insignificant to us, okay, but Allah knows it. Allah knows this thing. Allah knows everything. Okay, so He knows what is justice, what is this. Question: does He fear loss of something So if he's just to his servants, they fear that, then what happens to my treasures? My treasures will finish. Let me not give the creational needs of my servants. Let me hold back some of the food and grain and all those things I have. Why? Because if I give so much to my servants, then what happens to my stock? That doesn't make sense. Allah has no fear of losing anything. He owns everything. He has power over everything. One of his sifat is he's Al-Qadir. He has power. One of his other sifat is Al-Malik. He's the owner. I mean, so there's nothing like fear of loss. Third thing, can you imagine that Allah commits injustice? Why? Because He wanted to fulfill His needs. Okay, so He sees that, okay, if I don't commit injustice to on my servants, then how will I fulfill my needs? How will I fulfill? Doesn't make sense. Allah is needless. He's Al-Ghani. He has no needs at all that we can even ask that, okay, there are some needs which He has to fulfill, and one of the ways He's seeing that He has to fulfill them is by oppressing others. No. There's no such thing. He has no needs. He's needless. He does not need our ibadat. He does not need our favors. Okay? He's needless. And the last thing again does not apply to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He does not have hatred. He does not have these bad qualities. Why? Because He's Ar-Rahim. He's a merciful Lord. He's extremely merciful. He's extremely forgiving. He's extremely lenient. Okay? So, a Lord or a God who has these qualities, He has no reason to be unjust. And this is my proof. So this is our second intellectual proof, which is trying to tell us that just think about injustice and why people or why would anyone commit injustice. And when you think about these reasons, you realize that none of these reasons, they apply to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because He's not ignorant, He does not have fear of loss, He has no desires which He wants to fulfill, He does not have bad and evil qualities like hatred, that He wants to punish people just because of anger and losing control. So sometimes you want to take revenge. Okay, so people want to take revenge, and because of this, they oppress others. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ar-Rahim. In fact, He wants to forgive His servants. He's waiting for excuses through which He can shower His mercy on His servants. So this is a very, very simple and very, very beautiful proof which tells us that, and the proof is very simple. It's one line. Allah has no reason to be unjust. Just imagine, why would Allah want to oppress someone? Why would He want to deny someone his creational needs? Why would He want to not reward a person when he has committed a good deed? Why? For what reason? So there is no reason for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be unjust. And therefore, He is just. The qualities that He has, it demands that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be just. Okay, so here we come to end of our first presentation. So I'm going to request Sheikh Hassanein to, if we can kindly load the next presentation. And by the way, it's Salat time here, so please just give me 5 minutes. So inshallah, I'm praying, and I'll come back, and inshallah, I'll connect through call again. So inshallah, we can continue the discussion. So you have 5 minutes. So think about the things that were said so far. If you have any questions, please have the questions, because answering questions is going to be a very important part of our discussion. So if you have questions, maybe you want to start typing them, start putting them on the online platform. So inshallah, I'll be back in 5 minutes. Also, if there are any suggestions, if there are any comments that you want to make about this class, this course we have, you're free to do so. You have 5 minutes, so you can utilize them, or just you can even take a break, maybe grab a cup of tea or coffee to just refresh yourself. So I'll be back in 5 minutes, inshallah. Okay.
Okay, I think I was able to connect. So can everyone hear me? I can at least see my voice online. Okay, Alhamdulillah. Okay, so Alhamdulillah, I think there was some technical problem with the internet here. So now I think now it's working. Okay, so uh, let us continue our discussion. So far, okay, so let me just do, okay, let me do begin again. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, bismillahir rahmanir rahim. So this is a course on divine justice, session number 2. So this is actually session number 2, but I have few slides to cover in this session. I'm hoping that most of it I should be able to finish today. Okay, again, I have mentioned this before, that this is a topic that we need to think about. This is something, so please do think about these things. Any questions you have, please feel free to ask them. Any comments, any suggestions you have about the course. Okay, so let me go to the next slide. Let me do a quick recap. Okay, I don't want to take too much of your time. Okay, so the most important point that we have from our last session was that no one has any independent right on Allah. So this was the most important concept that we wanted to understand. And to remember this, always remember the example of children and parents. Okay, so children within themselves, they have independent rights. Okay, for example, over their toys. Okay, so you can see in the picture, right? So this young boy, young baby, he's furious. Why? Because he's seeing his brother, sister, his sibling is taking away his toy from him. So he has every right to be furious. Why? Because they have independent rights. But when you compare children to their parents, children have independent rights. Okay, this is an example, right? I'm not saying it's 100% correct, but I'm saying imagine such a relationship where parents, father and the mother, they provide, especially in the initial years when the baby is very small. Okay, so it's the parents who provide for all the needs of the children, and children have no independent rights over their parents. So this is an example which you need to remember to understand our relationship with Allah, that we don't have any independent rights over Allah. No. Okay, so what rights do we have? We have two things that are our rights on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which He's going to provide. Why? Because we just saw, I gave two proofs to show that Allah is just. So these are our rights which we have on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are not independent rights. They are not the rights which we acquired because we did a favor to Him or because we worked hard. So all those reasons, they don't apply. So we have two rights. Our first right is that Allah should provide our creational needs, things we need by virtue of our creation. Physical needs, emotional needs, psychological needs, family needs, social needs, spiritual needs. So all these needs must be provided by Allah because it's my right. Yes, it's not an independent right, but still it is my right. And the second right which all the human beings have is that Allah should give them what they deserve through their free will and efforts. Okay, they do good deeds, they deserve reward, and therefore they should be given what they deserve. So Allah's justice therefore is always divided into these two types. Okay, so these are the rights we have, and none of these rights are independent of Allah. None of these rights where they belong to me independent of Allah. I acquired them through my hard work, and no one has the right to say anything. No, these rights have come into existence because Allah has created you, and because Allah is just, He's going to provide for these rights. Okay, so let me go. So this was something which we have discussed in our last session. Okay, so now I'm moving on to a very, very important discussion, and this is something new. Okay, so maybe some of the things which we covered, you must have seen them or heard them, or inshallah you must have read them, some of those things in some of the books. Okay, so now I want to understand Allah's justice better. I want to know, okay, I know Allah is just, but how does His justice show itself? What are the different dimensions it acquires? Okay, so this is a very important question. Okay, so Allah's justice shows itself in different forms. Okay, so Allah's being just does not mean that as long as we are in this world, we are free to do anything, and when we leave this world and when we'll enter the realm of hereafter, afterlife, there Allah is going to take us to account for our actions. He's going to show His justice. He's going to be that just judge who's going to judge between people based on justice. So Allah's justice is not limited to the hereafter. No, His justice shows itself in this world as well. Okay, so Allah's justice has two branches to it. Allah's justice in this world and Allah's justice in the hereafter. Okay, and how Allah's justice works in this world again is slightly complicated. It's not very simple. It's not like 2 plus 2 4 and everything is very clear. No, Allah's justice in this world also shows itself in two different ways. There are two different channels through which Allah's justice wants to flow. Okay, so one is direct justice, another is indirect justice, and I'm just going to explain the meaning of these things. What do I mean by direct justice? Okay, what do I mean by indirect justice? And both of these have to do with this world itself. And again, what do I mean by Allah's justice in the hereafter? So let's have a look at these things. Slide number 7. Okay, so Allah's justice in this world means that He has created a just creational system. Okay, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designed this system, this nature that we see, and the way in which different things interact with each other, the different types of animals and plants and beings we have on the earth, in the universe, the different planets and stars and everything, different laws which apply to the human societies, all of these are based on justice. This is the way how it is designed. The universe is designed in a manner that it has been designed to give justice. Everything has been designed in a manner that it receives justice. Okay, I know you have questions in your mind, okay, which I'm going to answer right now. Okay, so this is Allah's system, and in this system, something which He has designed, no one can so easily interfere with that system. Okay, I'm going to explain what I mean. Okay, so to support my claim, let me bring out this narration, this hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, whereby he says, "Bil adli qamatis samawati wal ard." It is with justice that the heavens and the earth are upheld. Okay, again, when you uphold something, that means you establish something. Okay, you make it firm, you make it solid. Okay, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's system is based on justice. The things He has created, the way in which every being, there is a whole, for example, you know this, you're all studied, so there's this food chain, so food is provided for every animal, and the different things, how carefully they are put in a, for example, just look at the human body. Okay, so everything that the human needs is there in his body. So he has brain, he has eyes, he has nose, he has hands, he has different organs. Okay, so this is Allah's creational justice. Okay, and this is something which is direct. Okay, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided to create a system which is just, and He has created it. Okay, he was not waiting for anyone to do the work, do the job, do the work of establishing justice for him. No, He did it Himself. Okay, but there is another part to justice, which is, okay, so this is again to do with the creational justice, slide number 8. So creation of the universe is designed in such a manner that the creational needs of beings are fulfilled. Okay, so you remember, right? So always remember the definition and meaning of justice. It has two parts: providing the creational needs and rewarding for good actions. Okay, so Allah's direct justice in this world means that the system of the universe is designed in a manner that the creational needs of the beings will be fulfilled. Okay, and this again is there in the Holy Quran. So let me recite this verse for you. Inshallah, I'll also give you the references for this verse. I have them, I haven't typed them in the presentation. Inshallah, I'll provide the references. So this verse in the Holy Quran says, وَكَأَيٍّ مِّن دَابَّةٍ لَا تَحْمِلُ رِزْقَهَا. So the Holy Quran is saying that how many are those animals, those living beings that do not carry their sustenance, their risk with themselves. Okay? So what happens to them? Do they not get any sustenance? What happens to them? Their creational needs, things they require to survive. The verse of the Quran says, Allahu yarzuquha wa iyyakum. It is Allah who is going to provide you risk, and also to those creatures. So even the risk of the human beings is guaranteed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also the risk of other creatures, other living beings, is also guaranteed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the system He has designed. Okay, so this is one part of Allah's direct justice in this world. The way the system is designed is like this. Okay, and again, and this is very important, that in this world, every good and bad action has a reaction. And this is very important. So one should not think that the reward or punishment for good or bad actions will be seen in the hereafter only. No, the punishment or the reward of the hereafter is definitely there. There's no doubt about that. But one should not think that in this world nothing happens. No, the system, the world, the universe, the world, the material world in which we live is designed in a manner that every good and a bad action has a reaction. Okay, we may not know what that reaction was, but this is guaranteed that Allah has designed this system in a manner that whatever you do in life of this world, it has effect in this world, immediate effect. Yes, the effects of the hereafter are there in their own place, but effects in this world. The verse of the Holy Quran, وَمَا أَصَابَكَ مِنْ سَيِّئَةٍ فَمِنْ نَفْسِكَ. Any calamity or any evil that befalls you in this world, فَمِنْ نَفْسِكَ. It is from your own self. It is the result of your own actions. And the same holds true for good actions. So if a person does good actions in this world, the universe, Allah's system is going to respond in a positive manner. Okay. So this is Allah's direct justice. Okay. So I'm going to provide the verse number just right now. But you might have this question in your mind that okay. Okay, so sorry. There was a small is my voice back? I hope everyone can hear me. Okay, Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so let me quickly give the reference to the verses. So the first verse which I recited on slide number 8, وَكَأَيٍّ مِّن دَابَّةٍ, that is Suratul Ankabut, verse number 60. So Suratul Ankabut is Surah number 29. So Surah number 29, Suratul Ankabut, verse number 60. And the second one, yeah, just a second. Okay, I'll provide the reference, inshallah, towards the end. Okay, so the second one also I will mention. So now my question is that if Allah's system, if Allah has designed a system which is just, which is supposed to provide for the creational needs of all the beings, and it's a system where there's a reaction to every good and bad action, then why do we see so many problems around us, so many people not getting their creational needs? Or even animals, so you see some of the animals becoming extinct, okay, because of different things. Okay, so to understand this, and this is very, very important part of my discussion today, like I would say this is the core and the crux of our discussion today, this thing which we are going to talk about right now. So let's go to slide number 9. Okay, the reason why we don't see complete justice in the material world is because a part of justice Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to establish directly. See, note my words. I'm saying this again, and let me repeat this again. A part of justice in this world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is not going to establish a human society to establish this small portion of justice. Okay. So this brings us to a very, very important concept and understanding of Allah's justice. That Allah's justice in this world is divided into two parts. A part of Allah's justice, Allah is directly going to implement it by creating a just system. Okay, but a part of justice, especially the justice related to things that happen in the human society, Allah has delegated us this responsibility of establishing justice on His behalf. We are Khalifatullahi fil ard. We are His representatives on earth. What does a representative do? He does what exactly the person he represents does. Okay, so if we represent Allah, it means that we have to act in the manner Allah would act if He would be in our place. Okay, so what does this mean? It means that there is a portion of justice that needs to be established by us, the human beings, and this is related to our life in this world. Okay, the worldly life. Okay, so duty, justice in this sphere, in this area, okay, is duty of humanity. Okay, and again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has urged the humanity to establish justice, both at the personal level and the social level. Both at the personal level and the social level. Let me recite some verses of the Quran for you, and inshallah I'll even provide reference. So this is the first verse of the Quran, which says, Inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsan. Inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsan. Surah An-Nahl, verse number 90. Okay. Surah An-Nahl is surah number 16. Okay. So here, what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala trying to tell us? He's saying, Allah commands you to act with justice. And not only act with justice, go a step further. Act with ihsan. Act with mercy and good. Go a step higher than justice. So, this is a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is justice at the personal level. So this is my duty. So it's like this. In my personal life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to come and directly enforce justice in my personal life. No. This portion of his justice, he has left it on me to establish. Why? Because he wants me to become a just person. Because he wants me to develop this quality of justice. He wants me to become his khalifa, his representative. He wants me to get this quality, this perfection called justice. And again, it's not limited to the personal level, even at the social level. To the humanity as a whole, Allah has commanded that they should establish justice. Let me recite this verse of the Quran. So this is a very beautiful verse of the Quran, which is one of the key verses of the Quran which we all need to remember. So this is Suratul Hadid, verse number 25. Suratul Hadid is surah number 57. Okay, so what does this verse say? He says, لَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا رُسُلَنَا بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ وَأَنزَلْنَا مَعَهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْمِيزَانَ. Certainly we sent all our messengers. So see how important this verse is. It's saying that we sent all the messengers with clear proofs, and we sent down with them the divine book and the scale. Okay, the scale means the scale in which you weigh the good and the bad actions. Why did we do that? لِيَقُومَ النَّاسُ بِالْقِسْطِ. We sent divine guidance. Why? Because we want the people to rise to establish justice, to rise, to wake up, to stand up for establishing justice. لِيَقُومَ النَّاسُ بِالْقِسْطِ. The word used in this verse is annas. Annas means people. The entire humanity should stand up for justice. Okay, so this is a very, very important part of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's justice, whereby He wants us, the human beings, to establish justice on His behalf. Okay. So, and this, if we understand this concept well, so many of our questions will be answered. Why? Because now we realize that lot of these, in fact, all of these problems we have in the world which we see around us, most of these problems, they go back to this fact that human beings have not been able to fulfill this duty, okay, this indirect justice, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not directly going to interfere, and He's going to command the human beings, He's going to demand from the human beings that they should establish justice. So this is a very, very important part of our discussion. Okay. Okay, so let me come. Okay, so I have moved my slide to slide number 10. It's not reflecting on my screen, but I hope you can see slide number 10. I have changed it, but it's not changed on my screen. But down it shows slide number 10. So I'm hoping that you can see slide number 10. Okay, so all this I said so far was Allah's justice in this world. Okay, so Allah's justice in this world is divided. There is a portion of justice which He Himself directly is going to come and implement it. It's not going to wait for anyone. But there's a good portion of justice which He has delegated to us. He has told us, you do this duty. I am giving you this assignment, this task of establishing justice in this world. Okay, so what does establishing justice mean? Okay, so inshallah we are going to come to that again when in a discussion on doubts. Okay, and then when this life of this world will finish, the material world will come to an end, and everyone will be taken to the next realm, the higher version of reality, which is the hereafter. There Allah's justice will show itself in the most complete form on the day of judgment. On the day of judgment, and this is very important, that in the hereafter, the justice of Allah which is going to be established is only direct justice. In the hereafter, He is not going to ask anyone to come and establish justice. No, it will be Allah Himself who will establish justice. So there's difference between the world and the hereafter. In the world, lot of the tasks will be given to us to do, and we have free will. Human beings have free will. They may decide to do these tasks, become good servants of Allah, become His representatives, acquire those qualities which are there in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, become a perfect human being, or they can do the opposite. They can go against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They can disobey Him. They can commit injustice. Why? Because they have free will. Okay, but on the day of judgment, no, it's going to be only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who's going to take everyone to account for their deeds, and there'll be no oppression at all in the hereafter. And to prove this claim, let me recite for you this verse of the Holy Quran, Surah Al-Anbiya, verse number 47. Okay, so what does this verse of the Quran say? So yes, Surah Al-Anbiya is surah number 21. So surah number 21, verse number 47. So this verse is talking about the day of judgment. وَنَضَعُ الْمَوَازِينَ الْقِسْطَ لِيَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ. We shall set up just scales on the day of resurrection. So on the day of resurrection, a scale of justice will be set up. Okay, and what does this scale mean? See, in the hereafter, let's not think of it as a physical scale. No, it's a spiritual realm. There's no like a physical scale which has these different things to it. No, it's a spiritual reality that on the day of judgment, the scales of justice will be set up. Okay, and then فَلَا تُظْلَمُ نَفْسٌ شَيْئًا, and no soul will be wronged in the least. There'll be no dhulm on that day. There'll be absolute justice on that day. And then this is very, very interesting. And the Holy Quran says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, وَإِن كَانَ مِثْقَالَ حَبَّةٍ مِّنْ خَرْدَلٍ أَتَيْنَا بِهَا. And if somebody's actions were, even if it be the weight of a mustard seed, we shall produce it. So if someone has performed a very, very small good deed, which is like weight of a mustard seed. How small is a mustard seed? It's very, very small. Even something which is so insignificant, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to bring it on the day of judgment to judge that action. And then the Holy Quran says, Allah says, وَكَفَى بِنَا حَاسِبِينَ, and we suffice as reckoners. So Allah is saying that Allah is sufficient to do hisab. Okay, it's very easy for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take everyone to account with his justice. Okay, so what we are going to do today is we'll stop here on slide number 10, because after this a new discussion is going to start, and which is we are going to go through a long list of doubts and questions that people problem in the connection. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so I hope everyone can hear me. Okay, yeah. Okay, so from here we begin a new discussion. So I'm not going to start that. Inshallah, we'll start in a next session. So these are the different discussions we covered. We covered definition and meaning of Allah's justice, importance of this topic, proving two proofs to see justice of God, and dimension of Allah's justice. Always remember these three dimensions: Allah's justice in this world, direct, indirect, and Allah's justice in the hereafter. This is how Allah's justice shows itself in different forms. So Allah's justice is something which is very active. We shouldn't think that Allah's justice is passive. We shouldn't think that Allah's justice is passive and he's just sitting up there in the heavens and he's just saying, oh my God, these human beings, what they're doing on this earth, let them come to the realm of the hereafter and I'll show them. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not like this. No, he's present in this world. His justice is there in this world. And in fact, the justice of the hereafter is a manifestation of the justice of this world. The world and the hereafter are not two separate things. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is present everywhere. So I think the next, okay, so the few slides I have from this section, it will take me some time to explain, and time today won't be sufficient, and I have enough time. So I have 3 different sessions where we are just going to go through different doubts. So I have 5 minutes, and I would really ask all of you to ask questions. If you have any questions, please ask. So in this 5 minutes which I have, I can quickly try and answer these questions. Okay, so I have one question. So even if others, so I just have 5 minutes and I don't want to go over time. And unfortunately, there are some technical errors and we lost like 10-15 minutes in between. But inshallah, khair, next time I'll try to ensure from before that these technical problems, they don't come about, so we can utilize our entire time. Okay, so we have this question. How do we distinguish between the justice that has been entrusted to human beings versus his direct justice? It's a very good question. Okay. So there are several ways in which, okay, so again, so the brother has also given example. So the example here is that something bad happens to me. So the question is it because I was wronged by someone else, or is it because God dealt with me with justice? Okay, so this is a very important question. I'm going to answer this question. Okay, so the way to distinguish that is something very clear. Okay, so how do we distinguish between these two things? The first and the most important criteria is this. Okay, and please pay attention to this, that any action which is to do with human free will. Okay, so all those actions where human beings can, okay, again, as individuals and as a society, so always keep this in mind that Islam is a social religion. So human free will, just think about all those areas and all those actions which the human beings can do with their free will. Okay, anything which they can do with their free will, in that area the duty of establishing justice is ours. Okay, and anything which is outside the scope of our free will, that belongs to Allah's direct system of justice. So it's like this. So Allah has made a system of creation, but in this system of creation we are there and we have free will, and through our free will we can do different things. For example, through our free will we can destroy the environment, which we are doing right now, right? So you all know about global warming and the problems we have, pollution, sudden weather changes. Why? Because affecting our environment and the space around us is within our free will. So in this area, establishing justice is the duty of the human society. Okay, so let me come to this example. Something bad happens to me. Is it because I was wronged by someone else, or is it because God dealt with me with justice? Okay, so how do you know that? You see the situation. If you see that another person, through his free will, he came and he wronged you, it means that that person has committed injustice. Okay, and it has nothing to do with God. Okay, when I say nothing to do with God, it means that it's not that when that person was committing injustice, Allah could not stop him. No, he could have stopped him, but he didn't stop him. Why? Inshallah, we'll discuss in next session. So this is one of the doubts, inshallah, which I'm going to discuss in much detail in our next session. Okay, so leave that for the next session. But what I'm trying to say is that if something happens to you, and if you can clearly see that, come on, this person, he came and he stole this thing from me, he stole my laptop, for example. Okay, so here, this is that indirect justice which the human beings were supposed to establish. Okay, so I think this can be seen as a okay. So the brother Jabir is just asking for the reference of the verse where I said that every good and bad action has a reaction. So let me just quickly give you that. Okay, just give me 1 second and I'm just going to give you the reference. Okay, so it is Surah An-Nisa, verse number 79. So Surah An-Nisa is the 4th surah. So Surah An-Nisa, verse number 79. Okay, yeah. Okay, so I think I have answered my question. So the criteria is very simple. So you just see wherever the human beings can exercise their free will and they can cause justice or injustice, it's that indirect justice. Allah is not going to directly interfere. Outside that, Allah is in charge. Allah has taken control. So let me give you this very last. So this is my last comment, and this is this. So for example, imagine 500 years ago and 1000 years ago, where the human beings had not yet started exploiting, for example, jungles of Amazon, and they had not destroyed the environment like they have destroyed right now. So that time, if the human beings, when they hadn't interfered in, for example, the jungles of Amazon, the system in which the jungles of Amazon were working was the just system. Everything was going according to the divine plan. Everything was going according to the divine plan, his just system. All the relationships between different animals and plants was according to a just system. Okay. Now what happens is that now the human beings come with the modern civilization, with this technology where the concern for environment is very little, and they destroy jungles and everything. What happens? They exercise their free will, and now this Allah system, they start affecting it. Okay. Okay. So human beings can affect Allah's system. Of course, they can't affect it completely, but they can have an effect on it in a positive or a negative manner. Okay, so like this environmental problems we have is one example of the injustice of human society on the nature. And Allah is not going to directly stop the human beings from doing this injustice. Why? Inshallah, we'll cover in this next session. So keep this question in your mind, that why doesn't Allah stop the human beings from doing injustice. He should hold their hands and held them back from committing so much injustice, destroying the environment, killing people, committing big oppressions, waging wars, developing weapons that can kill thousands and thousands of people. And not only, don't let us not think injustice is limited to this physical injustice. No. There's economic injustice, there's social injustice, and other forms of injustice. So inshallah, in next week we will start with the doubts or the questions that we have. So again, think about these things. These are very important things, and these are not the things which you just hear and feel happy about it. No, think about it critically. If you have any questions, you can mention them to me in the next session, and if there are any specific questions, then I'll cover them, although I have tried to cover all possible questions that exist on this topic. So inshallah, thank you for your time, and again my apologies for the technical problems. Inshallah, I hope it was beneficial for all of you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.